My sister never stops comparing me, even when she's so perfect and successful. Her constant comparisons hit like silent arrows, piercing my confidence and making every moment unbearable. No matter what I do, she always finds a way to make me feel less than enough. My sister and I are only 2 years apart in age, but it feels like an ocean sometimes separates us emotionally. When we were children, we were inseparable. I remember how we used to play in the backyard for hours on end, chasing each other until we collapsed in laughter, sharing secrets under the blanket fort we built in the living room. We were best friends, partners in crime, and the closest siblings anyone could ask for. Our mother often said we were her little angels, the perfect pair who had each other's backs no matter what. But everything started to change when my sister hit her teenage years. Around the age of 14 or 15, she suddenly became someone I barely recognized. The kind, gentle older sister who used to tuck me in at night, who wiped away my tears and made me feel safe, was replaced by a cold and distant stranger. The warmth disappeared, and with it, the sense of safety I once felt around her. The shift was subtle at first, little digs, sarcastic comments, or moments of obvious annoyance when I needed her attention. But over time, it grew into something harsher, more cutting. I started to feel like I was always in her shadow, like no matter what I did, I couldn't live up to the person she had become. The words she used to say still echo in my mind. Why can't you be more like me? Why are you so slow? You'll never amount to anything. Those words weren't just criticism, they were daggers aimed straight at my heart. She began comparing me constantly, not just to herself, but to other people. Friends at school, cousins, anyone she thought was doing better than me. It felt like every step I took was scrutinized, measured against some impossible standard she set. I remember once she told me, "You'll never be as smart or as successful as I am." I was only 13 then, but those words crushed something inside me. My mother tried to intervene a few times gently, telling my sister to be kinder, to remember that we're family. But my sister was determined to prove herself superior, and the wall between us only grew higher and thicker. I felt isolated, like I was living with a stranger who shared my blood, but not my heart. I held on to hope that this was just a phase, a turbulent part of growing up. I believed that once we became adults, we would find our way back to each other. But as my sister moved on, graduating early, landing a prestigious job, earning a six-figure salary, our worlds only seemed to drift further apart. She's thriving in ways I haven't yet, and the distance in our relationship reflects that. We don't hate each other. We never fought physically, never screamed, or threw things. But the silence between us is deafening. When we're in the same room, it feels like we're two strangers forced to coexist. There's no laughter anymore, no shared secrets, no late-night talks. Instead, there are looks filled with judgment, comments that sting, and an unspoken competition that weighs on my chest like a heavy stone. My sister has everything a loving, wealthy boyfriend, a life filled with achievements and luxury. Meanwhile, I'm just a 19-year-old college student, attending a school far less prestigious than hers, still trying to figure out who I am and what I want from life. I'm aware of my shortcomings. I'm not as ambitious, not as polished, not as put together as she is. And yet it hurts when she feels the need to constantly remind me of this gap between us. She'll say things like, "I bought Mom a $200 bag for Mother's Day. What did you do?" Or, "When I was your age, Mom never paid for things like this." I want to scream that I don't have a job, that I'm doing the best I can, but instead I just smile and say nothing. The comparisons feel like punches to my self-esteem, making me question my worth and place in this family. At first, I was bothered by these remarks. I felt small and insignificant next to her towering successes. I wished I could be more like her, confident, successful, admired. But over time, I've learned to protect myself. I've come to accept who I am and to love myself for it. I don't want to be anyone else but me. Still, it puzzles me. Why does she need to compare us all the time, especially when she's clearly doing better in life? Why does she feel the need to put me down when she's so privileged and successful? I don't have the answers. All I know is that this endless comparison hurts. It creates a barrier that I'm not sure we can ever tear down. No matter how much I try to ignore it, my sister's constant comparisons always find a way to cut through my defenses. It's like a recurring nightmare that I can't wake up from her words echoing in my head long after she's left the room. Whenever we're together, no matter what the occasion, she has to find something to compare, some achievement of hers, to remind me how far behind I am. It isn't just about the big things. It's the little remarks, the subtle digs disguised as casual conversation that hurt the most. One time, she showed off an expensive purse she'd bought for our mother's birthday and asked me, "So, what did you get, Mom?" Anything special, I wanted to disappear right then and there. I didn't even have a part-time job, let alone extra cash to spend on gifts. Another time she told me, "When I was your age, I had already been working for a year. You're just wasting time." It felt like she was measuring my life against a checklist only she had access to, and I was failing every single point. My college wasn't as prestigious as hers. My grades weren't perfect, and I wasn't yet chasing a high-paying career or a fancy lifestyle. In her eyes, I was the disappointment, the underachiever. What's worse is that these comparisons come from someone who has everything going for her. She's got the perfect job, a boyfriend who treats her like a queen, and parents who adore her. She grew up in the same house with the same opportunities, yet she acts like she's the only one who ever tried or cared enough. Sometimes I wonder if she even realizes how her words make me feel. Does she see the way my shoulders slump when she talks? The way my smile fades when she brags about her accomplishments? I don't know. Maybe she's blind to it, or maybe deep down she's trying to prove something to herself too. But all I know is that it feels like she's building me up just to knock me down, like she needs me to feel small so she can feel bigger. The worst part is the impact this has on my own self-esteem. There are moments when her words seep into my mind and I start to believe them. I question if I'm really as incapable or unworthy as she makes me out to be. I look in the mirror and wonder why I can't be prettier, smarter, or more ambitious like her. I feel like I'm stuck in a never-ending race that I'm losing. Even though I tell myself I'm proud of who I am, that I'm on my own path, the pain sometimes lingers. It's hard not to compare yourself when the person closest to you does it relentlessly. It's exhausting trying to prove my worth, not just to her, but to myself. There have been moments when I wanted to confront her to ask why she always feels the need to put me down, but I never do. Maybe I'm afraid of the answer, or maybe I'm afraid of making things worse. So I keep my silence and try to block out her comments. I remind myself that she's successful, privileged, and maybe insecure in her own way. But even that understanding doesn't make it any easier. I wish she could see me for who I am not, for what I'm lacking. I wish she could celebrate my small victories instead of comparing them to hers. I wish we could be sisters again, not competitors or strangers, but people who support and love each other. Sometimes when she isn't around, I feel a surge of anger and frustration. Why does she have to make everything about herself? Why does she have to use our relationship as a way to prove she's better? It's like she's afraid that if I succeed or am happy, it somehow diminishes her achievements. But then there are fleeting moments when I see a softer side of her. A glance, a word of encouragement, a shared memory that reminds me she's still my sister. And in those moments, I cling to hope that maybe one day she'll stop comparing us. Maybe one day we'll find a way back to the bond we once had. Until then, I'm learning to stand on my own. I'm learning to love myself, flaws and all. And no matter what she says or does, I won't let her comparisons define me. Living under the same roof, surrounded by family, should have been comforting, but instead, the tension between my sister and me has cast a long shadow over our home. Our parents bless them, try to stay neutral, but it's clear they notice the rift. I often catch the worried glances they exchange when my sister's remarks leave me visibly shaken. They want harmony, but they don't know how to fix what's broken between us. Our parents always made an effort to treat us equally. They gave us the same opportunities, the same rules, and the same love. Yet, my sister's attitude sometimes makes it feel otherwise, as if she believes she deserves more or better because of the choices she's made. I don't blame our parents, they did their best, but it's painful when those efforts seem to get lost in the crossfire between us. Family gatherings have become minefields. Every time we come together, there's an unspoken tension. I brace myself for the inevitable comparison, the backhanded comment disguised as a casual conversation. When my sister talks about her achievements or how much she's done for our parents, it's hard not to feel invisible, like all my efforts pale in comparison. The silence between us at the dinner table feels heavier than the food. My parents try to mediate in subtle ways. They'll encourage my sister to be kinder or remind me not to take things personally. But no amount of good intentions can erase the years of silent judgment and the constant weighing of one sister against the other. Sometimes I see a flicker of guilt in my sister's eyes, but it quickly vanishes, replaced by that familiar, confident smirk, the one that says she's still on top. Inside me, There's a storm of emotions I struggle to keep bottled up. I feel resentment, yes, but also sadness. I miss the sister I once had, the one who cared for me without strings attached. The sister who didn't need to prove anything by putting me down. I miss the simple joys of childhood before our relationship became a competition, before every interaction was a reminder of what I'm not. There are nights when I lie awake, replaying our interactions over and over in my mind. Why does she do this? Is she insecure? Does she secretly envy me, even though she's better? Or is it just a habit, a way to boost her own ego? I don't have answers. I only know that the comparison is a weight I carry everywhere I go. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if I'm not trying hard enough, if I'm the reason she feels the need to put me down. But then I remind myself that this is her struggle, not mine. Her need to compare is about her, not about my worth. My confidence wavers on bad days, especially when I see her flaunting her success on social media, posting pictures of expensive trips, fancy dinners, and glamorous moments with her boyfriend. I scroll through feeling both proud of her and hollow inside. Proud that my sister is doing well, yet hollow, because I don't feel like I'm enough. But I've learned to draw boundaries. When the comparisons become too much, I step away. I protect my peace, even if that means distancing myself emotionally. It hurts, but it's necessary. Because I deserve to be treated with respect, to be valued for who I am, not measured against someone else's achievements. At the end of the day, I want to believe that we can heal. That maybe one day my sister will see me not as a rival, but as her sibling, flawed, imperfect, but worthy of love and respect. Until then, I carry on holding on to the hope that someday the comparisons will stop and we can find our way back to each other. The constant comparisons, the unspoken rivalry, and the silent battles finally began to take their toll on me in ways I hadn't fully realized until one moment that changed everything. It wasn't a grand confrontation or a dramatic fight. It was a quiet breaking point deep inside where I could no longer hold the pain and frustration in. It happened one evening after a family dinner. My sister, as usual, couldn't resist the urge to compare our lives. She mentioned with a tone of superiority that felt like a dagger how she had just been promoted at work and was already planning her next vacation abroad. I was sitting there barely holding it together when she looked at me and asked, "So, what's your big achievement lately? Still just going to that college that nobody really cares about?" That was the moment. The words hit me harder than I expected. I felt a rush of anger, humiliation, and sadness all at once. I wanted to scream to tell her how much her comparisons hurt me, but instead I quietly got up and left the room. I needed space to breathe, to think, to process. Walking alone outside, tears streaming down my face, I realized how much I'd been sacrificing my own happiness, trying to live up to expectations, hers, mine, and society's. I realized how much I'd been shrinking myself to avoid conflict, to avoid being seen as the lesser sister. That night was a turning point. I promised myself I would no longer let her comparisons define my worth or steal my joy. I began to focus on what truly mattered to me, my passions, my dreams, my own timeline. I started small, celebrating my personal victories, no matter how minor they seemed compared to hers. I learned to appreciate the journey I was on, not just the destination, but self-acceptance wasn't easy. The voices in my head, fueled by years of comparison, didn't disappear overnight. There were still moments of doubt, of envy, of feeling like I'd never be good enough. Yet each time those feelings crept in, I reminded myself I am not her, and I don't have to be. I am enough, just as I am. I also started to understand my sister better. I began to see her comparisons not just as attacks, but as signs of her own insecurities. Maybe she needed to remind herself of her worth through those comparisons, because deep down she felt vulnerable too. It didn't excuse her behavior, but it helped me stop taking it personally. Slowly, I found ways to communicate with her, not about the comparisons or the competition, but about us, about how I felt. It wasn't easy, and not every conversation went well. Sometimes she brushed me off or laughed it off as nothing. But sometimes, just sometimes, she listened. There was a moment when she said, "Maybe I don't mean to hurt you. I just want you to push yourself more." It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. It showed me that beneath her tough exterior, she cared in her own flawed way. I realized that our relationship wasn't going to fix overnight. It would take time, patience, and a lot of work from both of us. But for the first time, I felt hopeful. Hopeful that we could move past the comparisons and find a new way to relate, one built on understanding rather than competition. At the same time, I learned to surround myself with people who lifted me up, who celebrated my successes without judgment or comparison. I found friends and mentors who encouraged me to believe in myself, who reminded me that everyone's path is different and that's okay. My journey to self-acceptance is ongoing, but I'm proud of how far I've come. I'm proud that I no longer let her words define me or diminish my light. I'm learning to love myself fiercely even when it's hard. And though my sister and I still have a complicated relationship, I'm no longer afraid of who I am or where I'm going. I'm no longer trapped in the shadows of comparison. Instead, I'm stepping into my own spotlight, ready to write my own story, one that is uniquely mine. The path toward peace with my sister, and more importantly, peace within myself, has been anything but smooth. There were setbacks, moments when old wounds reopened, and times when I doubted if we could ever truly heal. But through it all, I held on to a quiet hope that one day things would change. It wasn't a sudden reconciliation, no fairy tale ending, where we hugged and promised to never compare again. Instead, it was a slow, sometimes painful process of learning to coexist with our differences, to accept each other's flaws, and to find moments of genuine connection in between the tension. One of the most pivotal moments came unexpectedly. I had just finished a difficult semester at college, overwhelmed by stress and self-doubt. I was sitting in my room when my sister knocked on the door and asked if she could talk. My heart raced. I wasn't sure if I was ready for another comparison or criticism. But instead, she sat down and said something I never thought I'd hear. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much my words hurt you. I guess I was trying to push you because I wanted the best for you, but I went about it the wrong way." Her voice was softer, vulnerable even. I felt a flood of emotions, relief, disbelief, and a cautious hope. I told her how much I appreciated her saying that, and that I was also sorry for holding on to resentment for so long. We talked for hours, not about achievements or failures, but about our fears, dreams, and what we really wanted from each other as sisters. That conversation was a turning point. It didn't erase years of pain, but it opened the door for understanding. We both realized that beneath our rivalry was a shared desire for love and acceptance, not just from each other, but from ourselves. Since then, our relationship has slowly transformed. We still have our moments of disagreement and old habits that die hard, but they don't define us anymore. We've started celebrating each other's successes without jealousy, supporting each other's struggles without judgment. For me, the biggest change has been learning to forgive, not just my sister, but myself too. Forgiving myself for feeling inadequate, for comparing myself to her, for letting her words affect my self-worth. Forgiving her for her imperfections and mistakes, and recognizing that she's flawed in her own way, just like me. I've also learned to set boundaries, firmly, but kindly. When comparisons start creeping in, I gently remind her and myself that our worth isn't measured by who earns more, looks better, or achieves more. We each have our own journeys, and that's something to be proud of, not ashamed. More than anything, I've embraced the idea that sisterhood is complicated, messy, and sometimes painful, but it can also be beautiful and healing. We are bound by blood history and shared memories, and that connection is worth fighting for. Now, when I look at my sister, I don't see a rival or a critic. I see someone who has helped shape who I am. Someone who has challenged me to grow, even if in difficult ways. I see a person who is imperfect but human just like me. And as for myself, I finally feel free. Free from the chains of comparison, free from the need to prove my worth, free to be exactly who I am. I'm still learning, still growing, but I love myself fiercely and unconditionally. Our story isn't perfect, and it probably never will be, but it's ours, raw, real, and realigned with love. And that, to me, is more than enough. What do you think about my story? Have you ever experienced something similar with a sibling or someone close? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you found this video meaningful, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories like this.